In August 2021, the unthinkable happened. Lionel Messi, Barcelona's crown jewel, the greatest player in the club's history, stood in front of reporters, tears in his eyes, and said goodbye. The cameras flashed. Fans outside the Camp Nou wept. And somewhere deep inside the club's offices, accountants stared at balance sheets that looked more like a crime scene. Barcelona wasn't just losing Messi. They were losing control. Because behind the farewell press conference was a number so large it didn't seem real. 1.35 billion euros in debt. That's not a typo. A club that once had more money, more fans, and more global power than almost anyone else in football, had burned through it all. The numbers didn't add up. For years, Barca had been spending like kings, world record transfers, astronomical wages, luxury renovations. But the money flowing out started to outpace the money coming in. And when the pandemic hit, the entire house of cards collapsed. This wasn't just a financial problem. It was a scandal. Because the people running the club weren't just making bad business decisions, they were gambling with the future of a 120-year-old institution. They were hiding the true extent of the crisis, kicking the debt further down the road, and hoping the world wouldn't notice. But when Messi left, the world noticed. This is the story of how one of the richest clubs in the world, a symbol of Catalan pride and footballing excellence, spiraled into financial chaos. It's about reckless ambition, broken promises, and the moment the dream turned into a nightmare. And it all started long before Messi's last goodbye. Before the billions. Before the Messi magic. Barcelona was just another football club fighting for survival. In the late 1970s and early 80s, Barca wasn't the unstoppable giant we know today. Real Madrid dominated Spain. European titles were rare. The club's finances were fragile. And while Camp Nou was already a cathedral of football, the revenue it generated couldn't compete with the English or Italian powerhouses. But then came a shift. Barcelona embraced a vision, not just to win matches, but to build an identity. Més que un club. More than a club. It wasn't just a slogan. It was a mission to tie Barca's brand to the Catalan spirit, politics, and culture. In 1979, the club's first football academy, La Masia, opened its doors. The idea was revolutionary: grow your own stars, play beautiful football, and keep the Catalan style alive. It wasn't just good for the team, it was good for the budget. Homegrown players meant lower transfer fees. By the 1990s, Johan Cruyff's dream team brought attacking football and trophies back to Barcelona. For La Liga titles. The club's first Champions League in 1992. Suddenly, Barca wasn't chasing, they were leading. But with success came temptation. The global football economy was changing fast. TV money poured in. Sponsorship deals got bigger. Player wages soared. And Barcelona, a club owned by its members, not a billionaire, realized they could spend like the super rich, without actually being super rich. By the early 2000s, Barcelona's finances swung between healthy and risky. When Joan Laporta became president in 2003, the club was in debt but still competitive. Then came the signing of a small, shy teenager from Rosario, Argentina, Lionel Messi. Messi didn't just change the game on the pitch. He became a global brand. Sponsors lined up. TV audiences exploded. Camp Nou became a tourist attraction. Between 2008 and 2012, under Pep Guardiola, Barca won 14 trophies in 4 seasons, including 2 Champions Leagues. But while the world saw magic, behind the scenes, the club was quietly increasing spending to historic levels. On player wages, on transfers, on infrastructure. The seeds of their future crisis were already planted. They just didn't know it yet. By the mid-2010s, Barcelona wasn't just a football club. They were a global superbrand. In 2015, Forbes valued them at over $3.5 billion, making them one of the most valuable sports teams on the planet. Their annual revenues passed 600 million euros, fueled by ticket sales, broadcasting rights, and sponsorships from giants like Nike, Qatar Airways, and Rakuten. On the pitch, the MSN trio, Messi, Suarez, Neymar, tore defenses apart. They won the treble in 2015, and their attacking dominance drew global audiences in the hundreds of millions. Every match was a spectacle. Every player was a brand. But with the success came an obsession, staying on top at any cost. Barcelona's wage bill exploded. By 2017, player salaries consumed nearly 80% of their revenue, far above UEFA's recommended safe limit of 70%. Messi's contract alone, later leaked to the press, was worth €555 million over 4 years, the biggest in sports history. Then came the moment that changed everything, Neymar's exit. In 2017, Paris Saint-Germain activated Neymar's €222 million release clause, making him the most expensive player ever. For most clubs, losing a superstar is a setback. For Barcelona, it became an identity crisis. They panicked. Within months, they spent €105 million on Ousmane Dembélé, €120 million on Philippe Coutinho, and later €120 million on Antoine Griezmann. Most of these deals were heavily backloaded, meaning the real cost would hit the books in later years. At first, it seemed fine. Ticket sales were strong. TV rights were growing. The global football economy was booming. Barcelona even announced plans to renovate Camp Nou under the FC Barca project, a massive €1.5 billion redevelopment. But there was a problem. Much of their success and their revenue depended on constant victories, Champions League runs, and Messi's star power. One bad season could shake the whole structure. And in 2020, the bad season came. Followed by something far worse. A pandemic that shut the gates of Camp Nou and cut off hundreds of millions in matchday revenue. By early 2021, Barcelona's financial situation was like a balloon stretched to its limit. Every big signing, every wage increase, every delayed payment had filled it with more and more pressure. And then, it popped. In February, the world saw a number that left fans in disbelief. Barcelona's debt had ballooned to €1.35 billion. Not all debt is bad, but this was crippling. Over €730 million was short-term, meaning it needed to be paid back within 12 months. Cash flow was so tight that the club struggled to pay player wages on time. The pandemic had slammed shut the turnstiles, erasing €90 million in matchday income. Commercial deals stalled. Merchandising revenue collapsed. And the Camp Nou renovation plans? Completely frozen. But the real bombshell came in the summer. Barcelona couldn't afford to register Lionel Messi. It didn't matter that Messi had agreed to take a 50% pay cut. La Liga's strict financial fair play rules meant the club's wage bill still exceeded the allowed limit. Without slashing salaries across the board, Messi's contract couldn't be renewed. So, in August 2021, the impossible happened. Messi, who had worn the shirt for 21 years, who had scored over 600 goals, who had become Barcelona, walked away, for free. Behind the scenes, Barcelona scrambled to stay afloat. They negotiated emergency loans with Goldman Sachs. They mortgaged future TV rights to raise instant cash. They even sold a percentage of their merchandising rights to outside investors. Club president Joan Laporta called it economic levers. Critics called it desperation. And the numbers kept haunting them. Messi's leaked contract revealed the sheer scale of past spending, €138 million per season including bonuses. Meanwhile, big money signings like Dembélé, Coutinho and Griezmann had failed to deliver Champions League glory, but their transfer debts still lingered on the books. The crisis wasn't just about losing a player. It was about losing the very thing that made Barcelona Barcelona. When Messi walked out of Camp Nou, for the last time, it wasn't just the end of an era. It was a warning shot. Barcelona could no longer pretend everything was fine. The debt mountain was too big to ignore. The club was operating on borrowed time. Joan Laporta, who had returned as president in March 2021, unveiled a plan he called economic levers. In theory, these were strategic moves to unlock cash without permanently crippling the club. In reality, they were selling the future to save the present. Barcelona sold 10% of their La Liga TV rights for the next 25 years to a private equity firm, bringing in €267 million. Then, They sold another 15% for 400 million more. Next, they gave up 49.9% of Barca licensing and merchandising, their retail and licensing arm, for another 200 million euros. These moves provided instant breathing space. Enough to register new signings like Robert Lewandowski, Rafinha, and Jules Koundé. On the surface, the team looked competitive again. Camp Nou was full. Fans dared to dream. But every lever pulled meant future income was smaller. Barcelona was betting that winning now would restore their brand and rebuild revenue fast enough to cover the long-term losses. It was a high-stakes gamble. Critics warned that if Barca failed to win major trophies, or if another financial shock hit, the reduced future earnings could trap them in a permanent cycle of debt. The pressure kept mounting. UEFA's new financial regulations, inflation in player wages, an unfinished stadium renovation draining resources. There were signs of life. Barcelona won La Liga in 2023, their first league title since Messi's departure. Young stars like Pedri, Gavi, and Ansu Fati gave hope for a cheaper, homegrown core. New sponsorship deals, like the Spotify partnership, injected fresh cash. But the question remains, has Barcelona truly escaped the crisis? Or have they simply postponed the reckoning?